10 years ago, I began working on this photo project, photographing athletes in high schools and colleges who are out about a gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender sexual orientation to their teammates and coaches. And you're going to see a couple of the slides for the next few minutes. And I decided to stand behind the podium here so you could focus on the images here. I want to first share a little bit about why I did this project. I didn't always think I was going to be a photographer in life. In fact, in college, if you asked me what I wanted to do, it would probably be a lawyer or a social justice advocate. But I took an elective in college on photography, and I realized that the visual medium has this power to sort of speak about social justice in a way that maybe other methods might not be able to. I myself was actually a closeted athlete in high school. And so when I got to college, I actually decided not to play competitive sports there because I wanted a safe space to actually be myself and come out. And so after graduating from college, I came up with this idea of this photo project because I wanted to sort of show other people something that I could never be. I mean, these people did something that I was never able to go back to redo in my life. And so I also want to contextualize these images a little bit. 2003 is when I started photographing the series. And in 2003, LGBT rights in this world looked very different. No states in this country allowed same-sex marriage. Federal laws did not protect against people being fired for sexual orientation. And the idea that we would have today openly gay and lesbian professional athletes playing in mainstream sports seemed impossible. So one of the first questions people always ask me is, how did you find these athletes? And I simply began with those around me. Because I just finished college, I started asking friends if they knew anybody who happened to be a student athlete who was also gay or lesbian. And incidentally, I was working in New York City at the time at an Apple store part-time, and I would save up money, and basically whenever somebody would contact me, I would save up money for film and a flight and fly to where they were, and I would stay on the floor or a couch of the dorm room that this athlete would be in. I was young, so this seemed totally normal at the time. And they would know me and get to know what I was doing, and I would get to know them, and a sort of trust was built between the two of us. I tried to photograph everyone who volunteered, and part of the way the photo shoot worked was that I would have them work out or swim, run laps, and in between these workouts, I would photograph them in a way where I tried to capture a sort of authenticity. When you look into their eyes, to be able to really see who they were as both an athlete, student, and fellow human being. And so through word of mouth, other LGBT athletes began to really hear about this work, and they wanted to be a part of it. And so I followed my instinct by photographing these images in the style that you see here, a sort of patient, calm, quiet type of photography. Some critics of the work thought that I should focus more on sort of a commercial angle, photographing these in more conventional athletic poses or ways in which magazines would want to publish the work more. And the art world actually turned a blind eye to the images, not knowing what to really do with political work that had this kind of strong stance to it. But I stayed true to my vision, and I actually began exhibiting the work at colleges, schools, nonprofit centers, and activist conferences around the world. And to date, it's actually been seen at over 80 different venues, including the two most recent Olympics, both the Summer and the Winter Olympics in London and Vancouver. And today, as I complete this project in its 10th year, I've almost photographed 200 athletes for the project as I work for a book publication later this year. So look out for that. But this trust in social capital actually expressed itself in another way, where in 2009 I began another project photographing closeted military United States service members. And you'll see slides of this work in just a minute, but I first want to remind you of what this was about. It may seem like an eternity ago, but just a few years ago in this country, our government mandated the removal of anybody who was open about a gay or lesbian sexual orientation in our military. And these brave men and women were serving our country going to war, and yet they couldn't be open about who they were. And many of you, of course, know this policy as don't ask, don't tell. And so in early 2009, I actually started traveling across the United States, meeting with these closeted service members. And I photographed them in ways where you couldn't actually see their faces, but could still recognize traces of their lives. These were in their homes or local hotel rooms if they didn't feel comfortable doing the photo shoot in their own home. And because many of these closeted service members knew about my earlier project, Fearless, some were even closeted athletes in high school and college themselves, we had this trust built around that work. And so we would collaborate on these photo shoots that reflected both their isolation, having to remain hidden, but also gestures that spoke upon their experiences at war, references to death, compassion, religion, and trauma. It was important to show the government's discriminatory policy affecting real people, and that these people had lives and loved ones they couldn't be open about, and yet were dying for our country, essentially. In early 2010, President Obama, in his State of the Union address, declared that his administration would work with Congress towards a repeal of this policy that year. And suddenly this issue became the main focus for gay rights activists as well as the media. And before I knew it, these photographs were published in all the major media outlets, including the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Time Magazine, Newsweek. I was doing interviews with ABC World News Tonight, NPR, the BBC, and these photographs were also distributed within the Pentagon, reaching the desks of the highest-ranking military officials there. And by the time the policy was finally officially repealed in September of 2011, I had photographed over 80 portraits for the series that now serve as a marker of the progress made in LGBT rights. So as I reflect upon the last 10 years of my life in this path of creativity, I want to just share these closing remarks. As artists, photographers, graphic designers, journalists, computer programmers, whatever kind of creative process that we put our label to ourselves, we have this responsibility, this potential of our power. We must be the ones to ensure that the integrity of the work stays true to the social justice aims that it can do. Groundbreaking creative projects may require time, patience, and independence, and should hold sincere commitment to the social values that bring life to the humanity around us. It can't just be about what brings us fame and fortune. And mostly, we must understand that as artists and creative agents, we are reflexive within history itself. As you can see in these images behind me, we are markers of that history, yet we can also be part of that history, an actor in the series of events that help create immense social change. And in that spirit, it's a pleasure to share my work with you today, so thank you very much.